We are very pleased to welcome here Irvine Welsh in the Noir Film Festival, a festival which has 32 years of life, and exactly 30 years next year will be celebrated the first novel by Irvine Welsh, Transporting. So we have more or less the same age, our festival and you as a writer. So many things change. Yes, many things changed during this time. We used to be young and full, and now we are what we are now, Irvine Welsh.
Just much better looking than we used to be.
Okay, but why? Why are you telling this?
Why am I telling this particular story?
Yes.
I think that I wanted to look at this character. I wanted to look at a character who'd been through some kind of post-traumatic stress event, which so many people are in real life. Like so many people who are victims of abuse or who are victims of kind of anxiety and stress disorders. I wanted to look at how they navigate life and how they're drawn to all these scenarios of revenge and which are kind of self-defeating in a way, but sometimes it feels like it's the only place for somebody to go when they're in that kind of situation. So the character was very interesting to me, and I wanted to revisit this character and sketch him out in more detail. And I've been doing that in these series of books, Crime and the Long Knives, and Resolution, which is the one that comes out next year.
Yes, of course. Let's talk about what we are talking about. This was a kind of prologue, of course. Everybody knows Irvine Welsh, Scottish novelist, playwright, short story writer. As I told before, Trainspotting was a huge success almost 30 years ago and influenced an entire generation, which was young in the 90s. After two other novels, his third novel, Filth, in 98, introduced the main character of a detective, Ray Lennox, which was a very strange type of policeman, a vicious sociopathic, we can say, policeman. The novel was also adapted into a film with the same name in 2013. This was your encounter with the noir genre and your character, which is also at the center of this last novel you were talking about, The Long Knives, Lunghi, Coltelli in Italy, published by Guanda, in some ways recalls, we can say, the Chandler's hero, Philip Marlowe, in a total different context, of course, cultural different context, in terms of culture, in terms of historic period, and so on. Are they so different? How is it important for you?
Firstly, the Filth novel, the main character was a guy called Bruce Robertson, who was a misogynistic cop. Lennox was actually his sidekick, who wasn't really so much a prominent feature of that story, but he was kind of, he was influenced by Robertson and Robertson's kind of shenanigans. Yeah. I thought the character was quite an interesting guy who was a character of secrets. So I wanted to expand his role a bit in this, in a novel that I wrote called Crime. And we filmed that and broadcast that last year, a 6-part series of it. And we're actually filming the sequel, The Long Knives, is just actually wraps today. We've been filming this for, I think, about 14 weeks. So we've got another 6-parter based on this. It's going to come out on TV, on ITV-X in April, I would think. So I've got a kind of bit of a head of steam with this character now, and I'm really enjoying sort of working with this particular character and finding out all the nuances and the because I'm not a plot guy. I work very much in character, and I let the characters kind of tell me the story. So I've got always an idea of a vague theme, but the character fills in all the details, and with with their obsessions and their interactions with other characters. So I'm really enjoying the Ray Lennox character, and the actor Dougray Scott that's been playing him has really brought him to life. And Dougray just he got nominated for an international Emmy for the first season. So hopefully he'll win the Emmy, and that would be great because he really deserves it. It's such a fantastic performance from him.
Yeah, we wish you this very much for you. And but why? My question, because we are a noir film festival and a little, of course, festival. Why the noir genre? Why the crime novel? It's tradition embodied by Raymond Chandler, in particular, Dashiell Hammett. Did sound for you familiar to describe, but your main aim is to describe your society and your generation.
Well, I mean, I'm not really a big kind of crime or genre sort of person, really. The title crime was meant as a kind of ironic kind of sort of statement, really. I see the books being more existential thriller than kind of police procedurals or about or kind of necessarily kind of plotted sort of storytelling in that traditional sense. I think there's been a lot of things that have happened since then that have given me a bit more interest in kind of let's call it noir instead of crime, because it's a much more interesting term. So I think that the rise of the Scandinavian kind of crime novel, for want of a better term, which is much more character based than the traditional British or American crime novel, is really interesting to me. It's like and if you look at and you talked about Chandler and Hammett and these great American writers, but the strength of them is that they make places like LA and New York become characters, and they become characters in the book as well as the people who have to navigate these urban kind of centers. So I want to I'm very much in the kind of mold of character writing. So the existential thriller is the thing that really appeals to me. I'm more interested not so much in the character solving a crime as the character trying to solve the puzzle of themselves, because that's what we're all trying to do really in this world. All the things that identified us and gave us significance are all breaking down now, like industrialization, imperialism, capitalism, the division of labor, and all the gender roles and all that go along with that. All that stuff is breaking down now, and we're becoming more rootless and disconnected, and we're searching out for these connections. And I'm interested in a character who's trying to work out who they are and what they've been through, as well as trying to work out some kind of crime, which is really about who someone else is and what they've been through. So it's like that duality of exploration. If you're trying to explore something that's actually happened, an event that's happened that's external to you, but you're also trying to explore the internal stuff that's going on with you, the stuff that's made your life and made you the person you are, particularly in your formative years.
Yes, that's exactly for these reasons you remember now that I was talking about the Chandler's tradition, an American hard-boiled crime novel, instead of the English tradition of the Sherlock Holmes, Agatha Christie, whodunit, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a classic thing that something's happened, and the good guys will work out what's happened and put the bad guys in prison.
But Philip Marlowe was, first of all, was a defeated person. He was coming back from the traumas of the Second World War and the difficulties of rebirth after the war. And then also he was an alcoholist. And so, okay, so these characters...
look at that whole thematic thing, that like Chandler, for example, is regarded as a crime novelist, and say like Nelson Algren, for example, is regarded as a mainstream literary fiction novelist. But if you look at like the Man with the Golden Arm and the Marlowe novels, there's not a lot of the whole thematic concern is very much the same. It's very much about this kind of beaten central character who's trying to make sense of their own life as well as the environment around them.
Yes. Do you think you have been influenced more by writers, crime novelists, or film, for instance, film directors, for instance? I'm talking about. I'm thinking about, I don't know, Ken Loach or other British directors who were aiming to describe the society and the dark side of the society in also in political terms.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's very hard to think about who your influences actually are. I mean, I think everything that you talk about, everything that you look at, and everything that you read and ingest and watch influences you in some way, and you don't actually know. The truth is you don't actually know. The truth is that sometimes you can pick up a book or watch a film that you've not liked. In fact, you've really disliked in a lot of ways, and it can be a bigger influence on you than something that you've really enjoyed. Something, if you really enjoy something, you just think, well, that was brilliant. I feel a bit envious of the guy who did that. I could never do anything as good as that. Whereas if you see something that's that you don't really like, or you can pick holes in it and you can think, I would have done this differently, or have done this better. Sometimes they're much more influential on you as a writer. So the truth is that if you're one of the kind of writers who tend to let the subconscious kind of tell the story, you're not aware of the influences on you. You're aware of what you like and what you don't like, but you're not actually aware of the mechanisms by which you're influenced.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Talking about the main themes of your last book, we are just having released in Italy, The Long Knives. As always, the dark side of our contemporary human society is accurately described by you. But this time, I think one of the most important issue seems to me the problem of sexual identity in general, or also in general identity, different kind of identities. Not only for the protagonist, the detective Ray, but also for other characters. Can we say that the whole novel, it's a book about various identity issues?
I think it is in a way. I think that the thing is that with the decline of all these institutions and all these things that told us what we were and put us in our kind of box, and the classic division of labor, the idea of work kind of put us in all these kind of boxes. And then you have these things like that all starts to break down when you don't have paid work, basically, or you don't have kind of, you can't monetize things in the same way you used to. All these divisions start to break down, and people kind of start to wonder in an existential level about who they are and what are they doing here, So it's like a kind of a right-wing kind of country club, upper middle class, rich white guy who drinks too much, doesn't seem to have anything in common with a trans person who's sort of thinking about whether or not to have a full operation to remove their male organs and become completely female, or become as female as they can, whatever, however you sit on that side of the argument. But they're searching for an identity. They're kind of we're all unmoored to an extent. Where been taken up. We're all like little boats that have been kind of we've been untied and we've been pushed down the river, down the canal, and all that and we're trying to work out how this affects us, who we are, and this is why you're having all these culture wars and all these identity kind of wars. And while this is actually happening, it's interesting that this is happening while culture is actually being eradicated, when we're moving into a media age rather than a street culture where things are discussed and contested, and they emerge as a result of the activities of people, you know. So we're getting stuff that's kind of a recycled version of what we've had before. And people are trying to pick bones out of that to work out who they are, to work out how they access power, how they access education, how they access language. You know, so we're all in this kind of weird state of flux, and it's a fascinating time to be a writer.
Mm-hmm. But also sexual identity issues are linked often to the political system's repression, in a way, as the story you tell in this novel also seems to confirm. Do you think we have a problem now of coming back to a repressive establishment, limiting freedoms in today's society?
Well, you have to. I mean, the whole purpose of the neoliberal revolution, for want of a better term, was to kind of have a liberalization of capital, so you can move capital around as much as possible, have complete freedom there, but you kind of we forget that not every individual has capital, and it concentrates in the hands of fewer and fewer individuals. So instead of becoming an instrument of freedom, as a lot of people intended when back in the kind of the 80s, it's become an instrument of repression because power is concentrated as a result of capital concentrating, and it's basically co-opted all the politics. And the politicians are now basically just office boys for multinational capital. There's no, there's no real sort of multinational and national capital, and the whole nationalist revolt against globalization, the revolt of nationalist elites, is basically them wanting to get their snouts in the trough and do more ripping off of the citizens that is happening on a global basis. So in that, but against that, the social liberalism is the part that people are contesting now. They're contesting this idea that part of the neoliberal package should be a social liberalism, that people can be free to do what they want. And but then again, it's like when they do that, they become less controllable and less malleable. So the idea is like, let's make it all about capital. Let's put them back into their box, and let's give them some false flags to salute, like kind of national flags and all that, and pretend that they're not going to be as exploited by their national elites as they are by their global elites, which is just nonsense, basically. So I think that yes, we have a lot of kind of dead air and a lot of polemic and a lot of nonsense and propaganda kind of masquerading as news, and we're all quite kind of bewildered and trying to pick our way through this minefield as a result of all that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but it's also a different kind of totally different kind of situation. Our life in globalization and after or during it, because we don't know if it's already finished, the pandemic, which led us, took away us from the streets and locked up us in houses. So what you call a street culture, it's very difficult to look for now. What remains of this culture?
The internet had done all that long before the pandemic. I think the pandemic reasserted and established it and pushed it further down the line. But the internet, this thing did it all for us anyway. So we kind of if people talk about freedom, but if we really wanted to be free, we'd throw this away, basically.
Yeah. Most of all, if you want to be free and not controlled, first of all. as in your almost all your novels, here too your characters sink into the darkest and most disgusting recess of the human soul. But here too you use sarcasm, a macabre irony that helps us to metabolize the violence you describe. How important is the aspect of the use of sarcasm in terms of irony in general, of words, of rhythm also for you?
I think you have to have humor, dark humor, which contextualizes some of the stuff that you're trying to get people to engage with. If you're forcing people to engage with material that's very dark, then you have a responsibility to give them space to reduce the tension, and that's really what the role of the role of humor is basically is a tension reduction. It's not really to laugh at things in a sort of in a negative way, to sort of it's like to laugh at our own vanities and foibles, because we're all kind of stupid and ridiculous and kind of disgusting from time to time. That's just the way we are. It's a human frailty that we have, and we have to laugh at that, because we won't get any better if we just carry on sort of blithely being like this, or if we sort of or if we kind of go all cowed and apologetic for being like it, even, it's like, but we're just opening ourselves up to kind of manipulation in that way. We have to laugh at ourselves, and we have to try and do better ourselves, basically. So, so that I think that dark humor gives us that opportunity in that space to laugh at the ridiculousness of humanity. And you can only find the beauty of humanity if you're prepared to laugh at the kind of the daftness of it all.
You have been defined by an Italian critic as a modern Dostoevsky on amphetamine. Do you recognize yourself in his portrait?
On amphetamine, yeah. It's you don't really recognize yourself in terms of any of these references, because the boring thing about writing books and films and stage plays and novels and TV shows is that you're on your own so much of the time, so you're only aware of these strange things that you're creating, these strange characters that start to come to life, and you're not really looking at your reference points again. You're not really thinking about what's kind of gone before, or what might have kind of come in. I mean, it's like obviously like Dostoevsky is a genius writer, so to be compared to anybody like that, it's obviously always going to be flattering if you're a kind of a serious literary student. But it's not really doesn't really do you any good ultimately.
Okay. Which is the role your Scottish origin plays in your writing and in your creation?
It's one of these things that it seems both very trivial and slight, but also deeply kind of profound and very deterministic of who I am at the same time. So I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, it's I think that so much of you is formed by where you grew up and kind of your friends and family from an early age and right into your teens and all. These are your formative years as a person, but also as a writer. But it's also your individual personality kind of plays such a huge part in it. So I kind of think that if I was like Irish or English or I was going to say or Welsh, I'm Welsh, but or American or South African, I think I would probably be very similar. I think the cultural tones would kind of be different, but I think that my impetus and my kind of my concerns would be roughly similar.
Talking about Scottish writer, we at the Noir Festival had the pleasure to meet Ian Rankin some years ago at the festival. Do you know him? Do you have any acquaintance with him?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You're very different kind of writers, of course. What do you think about this writing?
Well, I mean, he's one of the greatest plot writers, around. Basically, he comes up with great machinations and plot lines and all that. And I'm much more on the character-based side. I prefer to work with character, and let the characters tell the tale. Whereas he's one of these kind of writers who can just plan out a whole range of plot lines, and it's a completely different skill. I mean, I kind of I had a girlfriend who's still a good friend who was a very good crime and thriller writer, and she plotted everything out in the very same kind of way. And I was quite I'm quite sort of in admiration of that kind of writing, because it's something that I can't really, I can do, I can do it, but it's not something I'm inclined towards. So you get writers who are just so good at piecing things together in that way. But I think it's like my mind doesn't work that way. It's more like it's just, I think it's just the way that you work. I mean, I think I'll work more. I think if you're a plot oriented writer, you work more towards the rational, and then you bring emotion into it. Whereas I work more the other way around. I work more on an emotional level, and then I try and rationalize what I've done and put some kind of structure on top of that.
Can we say in musical terms that you're much more an improviser than him? Like a
I
jazz?
don't know, to be honest, I wouldn't be arrogant enough to assume how anybody else works. I don't know what the day-to-day process of any other writer is, so it's hard to really make a statement like that.
But since you know very well music, you know that being an improviser in music needs very good skills, and you have to be a master.
I think that you need a skill set in anything you do. I mean, I do music as well, and I know that you become very process aware if you're working in different disciplines. I mean, writing for TV, writing for cinema, writing novels are very different disciplines in a lot of ways. There's similarities, but they're very different. Writing music again is different, but you become aware of the processes by which you work, and I like to work by different processes. I mean, if I write a TV show or a feature, I think in a very different way, because you have to be aware of an audience. When I write a novel, I'm freed from thinking about the audience. I'm basically the audience myself, so I try and entertain myself or get a kind of reaction from myself. Whereas if I'm writing, if you're writing a TV show, you're working with a lot of other people, and you're very conscious of what an audience or what viewers will think of what you're actually doing.
Yes, you're very conscious of course, also of the mechanism which is behind the construction of the story. But I want to go deeper in the music theme, because your writing, as well as your biography, it's very much music driven. The music remains an horizon to which you refer since ever. Also in this book, how big is the role of music in your writing? It's just an inspiration, or it's an autobiographical accent?
I think it's like, to me, it's an interactive process between the two. I'm always kind of writing daft songs, and I'm always messing around with keyboards to try and get some kind of to try and get something going, basically, and that will kick off some kind of feeling in me, which I then start to write. I write prose from that feeling. And then I start writing prose from that feeling, and that'll kick off something in me, and I'll go back to start kind of messing around with music again. So I find it very enabling. I find music very, trying to create music is very enabling to me creating fiction.
Speaking about fiction, we saw your main character, right, Lennox, embodied by two actors. One is James McAvoy in Filth in 2013, the film directed by John Baird. And last year, the TV series Crime with Douglas Scott, who played Ray Lennox. The series you created with Dean Kavanagh. You mentioned before that you prepared or you finished the second season. But I wanted to ask you, what about these two interpreters? Because it must be very strange for a writer to see someone embodying your own character. Did you like the performance of both directors? One was more faithful to your character, or what?
Well, they are, as I say, they are different characters. Filth, James McAvoy played Bruce Robertson, and his sidekick, Lennox was the sidekick then, and he was played by Jamie Bell. So he didn't have he wasn't the main character in it, but whereas Dougray is Lennox in the two crime shows, and he's the main character. But I think that for me, James McAvoy's performance as Bruce Robertson is one of the best performances I've seen from an actor. Is the way he handles the emotional transitions of the guy's breakdown is absolutely fabulous, and it's just incredible. Now, I didn't think anybody could match that until I saw Dougray's performance as Lennox, because he's really, really gone to town on it. And Dougray and I are friends who've been planning this show for about 10 years. We've been trying to get this made for about 10 years. So he's had 10 years of investing into the character, and it really, really shows. I mean, he just really becomes that character. It's just absolutely amazing. And all these kind of all the nuances of that character and what that character goes through, he just rides with them all the way. And Lennox is a more sympathetic character than Bruce Robertson. I mean, Bruce Robertson is like very troubled, traumatized cop, in the same way as Lennox is a very troubled, traumatized cop. But whereas Bruce Robertson's in complete denial of it, and he jumps into a kind of an aggressive fascist loop, Lennox is actually trying to work through it and trying to work out kind of who he is in a much more constructive way. But his demons are constantly gnawing at him in much the same way as Robertson's were. So Lennox is like a kind of new man version of Robertson, if you like. But he still has his issues and his problems. But it is fabulous performances from both these guys. And I'm just so lucky to have talented actors like that want to be involved in stuff that I'm doing. It's so flattering. We've got a great actor, Joanna Vanderam, who plays Drummond alongside Lennox in the two shows of Crime, and she's absolutely amazing. She just she didn't have a great she didn't have a lot to do in the first one, really. She was quite a starchy cop, but we've kind of found an interesting backstory for her in the second one. So Joanna really just blows it out, she just blows it out of the water. She's an absolutely fantastic actor, and she's going to be huge. So we're so lucky to have her. And I've just been really lucky, right from the very start, from the Trainspotting guys, both on screen, obviously, but also on stage. That people have been really, really talented. People have been drawn to working on my stuff, which is incredibly flattering.
You didn't not only you not only wrote for the fiction, for TV, for theater and books, but you also had a little experience as a film director. Do you think you will go on forward with this? Will be another chance for you to have such experience as film director, or?
I think you have to know your own sort of skill set, and I did a film called Good Arrows, which was a kind of a film for Channel 4, and I've done some short films and music videos, but I've enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed, I think that it kind of, I think with directing, you've got to sort of, you've got to really, I think you've got to really immerse yourself in this whole thing for, completely. Whereas I think that the great thing about writing to me is that you can go onto something, and then you can just think, well, I've had enough of this. I want to just walk away and do something else for a week, and then I'll come back to it. You can't really do that when you're on set as a director. You've got to go there. You've got to listen. You've got to show up every day, and you've got to kind of bring the same level of energy to it. And I think that for me to have a go at directing again, the material would have to be the right material for me. It would have to be something that kind of excited me the whole duration of the shoot. And I think that you have to acknowledge your own skill set. And there's areas that I'm very deficient in, and I wouldn't be a good director. And there's certain areas that I'd be quite good in, but it's not been a burning ambition of mine, So it's but you're always learning. I think you're always learning. You're always taking your interest changes, as you get older. So you never know.
Thank you for these words. I agree with you totally. And so you are ready for another book, because the next thing is the next season of Crime. Am I right?
Yeah. We're going to get the next season of Crime out. I've done another crime book, which is number 3 in the series. So hopefully, if the season 2 does well, season 3 will be made into a show as well. And I think we're all excited about ITVX. I think it's a great thing that ITV have started their own dedicated streaming platform, and I think it'll give the shows a much bigger profile. And it'll be the crossover with terrestrial ITV. So I think that that's a really good move. And I was at an ITVX presentational thing the other week in London, and the shows that they have are really interesting. They've got something, it's like they've gone to town. There's a great show written by Philip T. Davis, who wrote Queer as Folk, and starring Helena Bonham Carter as Noel Gordon, who was Meg Richardson in this iconic British TV soap Crossroads, which I used to love. So they've got, which will be a really mad and kind of dark.
So you're in good company.
Yeah, I'm in great company. But they're in great company, and I was just watching some of the snippets of these shows at this thing at the festival hall, and I think it's going to be a really, really strong channel.
Fine. Final question, very last question. Nothing to do with literature, and very strange that a woman asked you this question. But Qatar hosting the World Cup, what do you think about it?
Honestly, I think they can get to fuck, basically. I think that it's absolutely horrendous that this is happening, and I think it's just such a terrible thing. The human rights abuses, the way that gay people are treated, the way that guest workers have been treated there, and the reports of all the kind of abuse and deaths and all that that's happened to put on this football tournament. It's absolutely ludicrous, and I don't intend to watch. I'm crazy about football, and it'll be tough for me not to watch these games. But I'm determined to try and boycott this fiasco as much as I can.
Thank you for these words too, and thank you for chatting with us. So sad that we can't.
The good thing about it, Marina, is that both Italy and Scotland didn't qualify, so our hands won't be our hands won't be tainted with that blood, like, you know.
So you won't regret. Okay, thank you, Irvine. I hope that you will be our guest physically with the next book.
I would love to. I would love to.
Yeah, in December, maybe next year. And Noir Festival is always open to you. And so I wish you good luck with all your enterprises and with your life. Thank you.
You too. Thank you very much.